Welcome to the Tied Together podcast, where we feature everyday people doing extraordinary things. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share so others can join in on the conversation too. Today's guest enrolled in Penn State University and hit the ground running, literally. From track and field to a major in electrical and electronics engineering to a job in door-to-door sales, he took the next logical step and quit his job in the middle of a pandemic. Armand decided to nurture his purpose, his business, and author a book encouraging others to do the same. He lives by and pushes the idea that you can recession-proof your life. Welcome the owner of Sigma Solution Marketing and Consulting Services and the author of Recession Proof Manifestor, Armand Cheeks.
Thank you very much for having me. Oh my God, that was an amazing introduction. I think every from what I've seen, every person that's got an introduction has absolutely loved it. I don't know if it's because we love hearing ourselves be introduced or because you're doing an amazing job, but I'll say it's the latter.
Well, thank you. And I think maybe, and this is just my opinion, we don't often hear our highlight reel or even think about our highlight reel. So when it comes at you in like a few sentences, it's like, wow, I am pretty dope. And that you are.
That I would completely agree. It's like, wow, I didn't even know that I did that.
You did, and more. I want to talk about one of the ideas that you have to start off, which is systemic upliftment. I've heard of systemic racism, but I have not heard of systemic upliftment. Can you just dive into that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of systemic upliftment, it's really just making sure that we as people, one, recognize our inner abilities to be able to uplift others, and then we also use the positivity of others to help influence ourselves. I think, anything that one person can do gives almost a blueprint for someone else to be able to do the same thing. So kind of like your podcast being named Tied Together, it makes sense because all of our successes are tied together, everything we can learn from. So that's pretty much a basic gist of it.
Yeah, and I love that. I have heard you talk about our successes being tied together, and that, the goals that you set for your life and that you achieve actually are tied with other people's goals. I think about that like purpose, because your purpose is for other people. And you talked about being successful is for other people. Where does that idea come from?
To be completely honest, I would say a lot of it from things that I've read, and really understanding that the whole purpose of books is to, especially self-help books, is which I really got into when I was 21 or so, is for the purpose of us to be able to read that and almost use it as a mentor. If we can use books as mentors, then it does help cut our learning curve in half, but it also shows us people that, and it cuts our learning curve in half by showing us people that have done things that may seem like they're outside of their realm. So I know that, seeing people that look like me be in the digital marketing space and succeed, it just makes me feel like, wow, I can do the exact same thing. And I think that that's a mentality that everyone should apply based on whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm. But how do you think somebody else's goals will tie in another person's? Because some people may not have thought of that idea. I myself, when I was first starting out at life, looked at my goals as just for me. I was going to build myself up and I was going to go the road alone. How do you see somebody's gift of being a chef or their success in being a chef tying in with somebody else's goal for whatever reason?
Well, I would say, I think with any goal, the whole purpose of us accomplishing a goal is for the sense of fulfillment or the feeling that we feel that we'll get when we accomplish it. So in your example of someone being a chef, like even though their goal may to be the head chef, by achieving that goal, they're feeding however many thousands of people. They're bringing that fulfillment to the person that's consuming their food or consuming whatever their products may be. So I would agree that once we decide what our goals are, it even though it seems like the goal is self-centered, the purpose of us achieving our goals is for other people to feel it whether it be because we accomplish our goal, we have a better feeling that allows us to, portray better energy to the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
It works in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's true. As you're saying that, I'm like picturing a restaurant and, just feeding all those people. And then while your dream is not yours per se, but your dream is to be a head chef, somebody's dream is to be a sous chef. And,
Mm-hmm.
because you did that, now you're bringing along somebody, whether you intended to or not, that can now fulfill their dream and accomplish their goals. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
good. Going back to the
100%.
going back to the systemic upliftment. Did you have people who uplifted you throughout your life and your various journeys? And I do want to get into your various journeys, but I just want to know who you had, if anybody, that was uplifting you throughout.
I think my biggest source of uplifting would be my family. So my mom, my grandma, my uncle. I actually have a tattoo on my arm. It says, "All I live for, all I pray for." And that was the first tattoo I ever got. And I figured that I was like, man, I know my mom doesn't like tattoos. I know my grandma doesn't necessarily like tattoos. But if I had something to really show them, like that, this is for them, so
Yeah.
they've always been an amazing source of positivity to me, and it makes me realize that when people do operate with love in their heart, the byproduct of that and the people that they touch, they go on to do amazing things. My mom and my uncle, they've always supported me, and they always said, anything you want to do, you can do. And I think the more you hear that as you're growing up, and even when you feel like you're struggling, they're still telling you that they're proud of you. It's like, wow, that's an amazing feeling for sure.
It really is. It really is. I've experienced the same in my family. I've always been told that I was capable. I've always been told that I can do anything. And I've said in even previous interviews, if they were lying, they did a good job because I believed them. I believe that they believed that about me. So in turn, I now believe that about myself. I do believe that I can accomplish anything I put my mind to, whether it's hard work, easy work, whatever it is. I do have that wholehearted feeling that I can do it. But I do know that there are some people who don't have people speak life into them and tell them that they can be successful. I've asked the question before, and I just like to hear different thoughts on it. What do you say to people who don't have that kind of backbone and how they can build that backbone for themselves?
I would go back to what I was talking about in terms of reading and how reading has helped me. So even though my mom, my uncle, and my grandma, they all have given me the immense amount of love and support, they may not have necessarily had the same entrepreneurial goals that I would have had. And especially I would say my mom would have preferred me to do things more related to my major, but I see things from a greater purpose. So, and that's a lot based on what I've read and the books that I've consumed and how they've have shaped my mindset. So I think that anyone that is looking for that extra source of positivity or a reason to be positive to push on with what they're doing, I would definitely recommend a good book, and not just any book. I personally am a huge personal development. I don't want to say guru, but that's the genre that I stick to. Only because there's so much as people that we want to learn, and each year we continue to grow and unfold regardless whether we're reading. So it would make sense that we control the content and the what we end up consuming, because that's what's going to determine what our life becomes over the next course of years.
I agree. I don't remember what year it was, but it was a few years ago that I stopped listening to the radio and I stopped watching, if it wasn't positive music, and I stopped watching like the TV shows that I normally like. Like I love scary movies. I love suspense. But I believe that you are what you eat, whether that's actual food or the content you're consuming. And at that time, I wish I could remember what was going on in my life at the time, but I don't. But at that time, I did have like a negative outlook on where I was headed in life. And my overall feeling just was not good. So I said, you know what? I'm going to cut all these things off. I started listening to gospel music. If you don't listen to gospel music, if you're watching, listen to something uplifting. Listen to some, if you're a female, listen to Beyonce or Destiny's Child. I'm a survivor. You know, that'll help you out and
Mm-hmm.
uplift you. I watched a lot of, I think it's when I first really got into YouTube University. I was looking at Zero to Hero stories to find people like me that actually made it. But I did make sure that everything I consumed digitally was positive, and it did change my outlook. So I definitely agree with you in finding a good book. And sometimes you got to read a few, like you got to kiss a few frogs before you find the prince. But you will find that book.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I want
agree.
to talk about you talked about college. So you went to school for engineering, and now you're doing digital marketing. What was your goal going into college? Was it marketing?
If I'm being completely honest, I did not have a real goal going into college. My main basis of the school that I applied to is that I had got accepted. So in high school, growing up, I've always loved math, science. I've always been at the top of my class in those areas. But I also liked history and writing. So I really had, because I excelled at so many different areas, I had a hard time picking what I wanted to do.
Mm.
But when it came to picking a school, one of my best friends from high school ended up getting accepted to Penn State, Harrisburg, probably, 3 weeks ahead of me. So I'm like, hey, let me apply there. If he could get in, I know I could do it, right? I would feel comfortable if I made this transition with one of my friends. So we ended up both getting accepted. We both became roommates. He decided he wanted to study, I think, physics. I said, okay, I'll do electrical engineering. So I don't know if me picking electrical engineering was out of saying, hey, I know I'm as smart as you, and this is what I think I can be able to do. Um, but as time went on and I actually was in college and I, got to be active on the campus, I realized that there were things that I was better at. And whether it be interacting with people, getting people to come out to, my fraternity's events. I didn't even think I was going to join a fraternity. I knew nothing about fraternities. So I think the whole college experience was something that I learned as I went. And the reason why I decided to kind of make that pivot into digital marketing is because even from when I was, working and helping businesses in Pennsylvania, I recognize that small businesses have a dire need for being able to get people to understand what their brand is, what their brand stands for through the digital medium. And unfortunately, the way exists now, a lot of times it's very expensive for small businesses to do that. They don't have the budget. They don't have a lot of the resources necessary for them to be able to make that happen. And I know that by me doing this, I can create a greater impact. But electrical engineering still is near and dear to my heart because when I think about the power of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned how electrical engineering, law of attraction, manifestation, all kind of can combine into one.
Yeah, dope. So you leave from college, and I heard you say in one of your interviews regarding your door-to-door sales that it was like the Marine Corps. Is that what you said? Like the Marine Corps for sales?
Yes, it is. 100%. 100%. It is a very trying environment for sure. I know when we spoke the other day, you talked about, when you were in car sales, you worked 6 days a week, probably almost, 60
60
hours or
plus,
so,
yeah.
more, probably more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was literally the exact same thing with door to door, but because this was a management training program, the whole goal was to be able to teach and train people how to do the basic sales and marketing, help them teach and train a team to be able to do the same thing so that way they can open up their own office. So I would come in at 8, I would leave at 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes on Mondays, leaders meetings would go till midnight. So I invested a lot of time in every condition, whether it be rain, snow. I've been on people's porches, knocking on their door, making sales for someone else's product. And if I can take that same
Yeah.
environment or that same feeling and passion for doing that for someone else's business, I can do that for mine as well.
Yeah. Did you get into it for a job? Did you get into it to learn sales? What was your motivation into getting into door-to-door sales?
So my motivation was to expand upon my sales and marketing experience. So when I first launched my business in 2017, I went out to, I did a couple meetings, a couple sit downs with businesses in that area. But I didn't feel like they were really hearing me. And I'm like, is it because I'm young? Is it because this, that, and the third? But rather than looking at the barriers, I said maybe I should get some type of sales and marketing position to help me learn a little bit more. And then, once I do that, it'll be able to help my business. So the main motivation was to develop those skills. So when I ended up leaving that company, I didn't feel a type of way because I realized that the whole purpose was actually achieved.
Right, right. I think it's interesting that you took a whole job just to learn. I don't just find it interesting. I find it admirable, and a lot of people have done it, but I think especially young people just starting out don't want to look at it that way. If they have their own business idea, they just want to stick with that and roll with that, and they don't see jobs as learning opportunities, which they 100% are. Every job you have right up until you find your thing is teaching you. And I will say this, coming from the sales industry, I'm good at sales, and I was taught by great salespeople. And I can see the difference between a great salesperson, mediocre, and a poor salesperson. And you and I spoke yesterday about some business things, and I can tell you're a great salesperson. I can tell from off the bat, that you're a great salesperson. I know when I'm being sold. Even if you're doing a good job, I know when I'm being sold, when somebody's pitching a product, and I admire your salesmanship. I don't know if they say this in door-to-door sales, but have you heard of a whiffum?
Oh yeah, what's in it for me?
Right.
Yeah, I got all all the acronyms.
Right. So you definitely got me with the with them. You had a what's in it for me. I appreciated how you went about that. And those are things that you really, really learn in being in sales. Sales is tough. Sales is not for thin skin. You definitely have to learn, and you will learn how to deal with people, or you will quit. Because people are different. It's just every single person, you're going to deal with great personalities, horrible personalities, hate you from the gate, love you at the end, all different types. And sales will teach you that. And because you're getting into digital marketing, or you're not getting in, because you're in digital marketing, that was a very good skill for you to attain for yourself. And I would encourage, and I don't know about you, but encourage anybody looking to do anything is to dive into different fields that'll help fine tune those skills.
100%. And just to kind of touch upon a couple of things that you said, one, in terms of sales, I think what people need to realize to make it less difficult for them is that sales is really about relationships. It's about relationship building and understanding, like you said, what's in it for me, but understanding how that other person benefits from the product or services that you can provide.
Right.
So with me, and it's interesting. I definitely think more people of color, if they're looking to get into business later on at some point in life, they should decide to do some type of sales or marketing position, because from me doing door to door, I had to sell to white, black, it doesn't matter what your race, ethnicity, what your background was. The whole purpose, like when I knocked on your door, was to understand what your problem was and just to see if you even needed the service that I have. A lot of people, they sell in a way where it's like, I know I have a product and I know you need it. And that's not the approach that we should go based off. We should go based off every time we're looking to sell or to, ask questions. It should be, how can we, do something for the greater good of the other person on the other end of this deal? And if I can make sure that I'm, hitting all the points that they need, then it becomes a no-brainer as to why they should yes. And even if they don't say yes, I don't feel bad anymore, because it's like, I know that I, was trying to help them. And one more thing in terms of sales, it's like, we have to understand that in life, as well as sales, we're going to hear the word no way more than we would hear the word yes. So, with me working door to door, our goal was to try to, make 2 to 3 sales per day, but we would do 3 laps on 60 houses, right? So that means on any given time, if I were to speak to at least the 60 people that own those houses, I'd be hearing at least, 57 no's in the day. And when you think about the person that makes the most sales, it's the person that has the best attitude and is able to persist even when the odds are in their favor, against them rather. Because there have been times where I've been in the snow, it's been raining, I have the tablet, and I'm in front of this person pitching them Verizon Fios, but I'm pitching it out of a position knowing their current provider is overcharging them. They're not getting the services that they want. So when I'm standing in the rain and I'm smiling, it makes it easy for them to buy into the product, because they're like, this kid is outside smiling, talking to me about this product. I might as well hear what he had to say.
Yeah.
Like I used to be, I used to get invited into houses, I get snacks, all that stuff. But it's all about being able to, to relate with people.
Yep. Yep. Two things I learned early on in sales is your attitude is everything. Attitude is everything. If you go in with a bad attitude and you maintain that through, if you don't know how to switch it on and off, let's say you're having a bad day, bad month, bad life. If you don't know how to switch that off when you're engaging with your customers, you're really probably not going to sell something unless somebody sees your bad day and feels bad for you. And 9 times out of 10, that's not going to happen. The other thing I learned is that also 9 times out of 10, people don't buy your product. They buy you. You have to sell yourself. It's being personable, like you said, caring about what's in it for them. They're going to buy who you are as a person. When you go into any car dealership, furniture dealership, or anything like that, just look back at your last few purchases where you had a salesperson. You didn't buy the thing. That thing had been offered to you before. It's not the first time. And they could have even charged you more this time around, but you liked them. You liked them. I had a furniture guy. Who has a furniture guy? But I liked him. I walked in the store and I told him, I said, look, I'm in sales. I don't want to waste your time. I'm just here to look today, which is always annoying when you're on the sales floor. I said, I'm really here to look today. Just go take care of somebody else. When I buy, I'll buy from you. He left me alone. He checked on me one time. He said, just check in. I'm like, I'm good. And every purchase I've made since then has been through him because I like him. Could have gone to a million other furniture dealerships or furniture stores, sorry. But people buy from who they like. I do want to touch on something that you said regarding you talking about your race being a barrier, right? So a lot of times when people look at winning, they look at their barriers, what holds them back. That can be your gender, that can be your race, that can be your age. Some people feel like they're too young to offer the insight like what you're offering in your book. I want to know what makes you feel qualified so we can in turn let others know that they can still pursue the same whatever boundaries they're putting around themselves.
So I would say that the biggest thing that makes me in particular feel qualified is just my experiences. And I think that's the same thing that anyone else can use to make to feel qualified for something. Whether, if you played a sport, for example, you would be qualified to be a business owner because you have worked in team environments. You've probably had to deal with leadership roles. So I think everyone should begin to look back upon their own experiences, and then from there say, okay, how can this experience apply to something else that I want to do? I personally no longer believe that there are any barriers for anyone, whether it be, like you said, race, gender, ethnicity, anything like that. We don't have any barriers if we don't think we do. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things that I've learned. I learned from going into sales and doing door to door, because when I was trying to do business for myself the first time, I felt like, man, am I too young? Are they not listening to me because I'm, young and Black? But then when I'm in a scenario where I have to knock on this person's door regardless anything, I have to put all those limiting beliefs to the side. And I think a lot of people, or a lot of us, we acquire limiting beliefs over the course of our lives, but it's always going to be up to us to shatter them and remove them.
Yeah, absolutely. You speak about in your book and in general about mindset being very important in terms of building yourself up, building your business. What is it about mindset you think is so important, and did you have to change yours over the course of the years?
Man, that's a good question. So what exactly is important about mindset? So I would say mindset is everything. Mindset goes into your attitude. Mindset goes into your work ethic. Mindset goes into your belief systems. So I think especially if we think about the book The Secret or anything like that, they talk about how thoughts become things. Well, thoughts become things, but beyond thoughts, we have beliefs, we have habits, we have all these other aspects that are also included in our mindset that may need to be changed for us to get to where we want to be. At the very least, we know everything that we've done will lead us up to where we are right now. Mm-hmm. So if we want to be more or accomplish more, then we probably would have to make certain changes to get to that next step. So that would probably be what I would say is the most important thing about mindset. And then did I have to make any changes? Yes, I would say everything was a change for me. Because if I'm being completely honest, like the main reason why I started with my business was to be able to progress myself with my college career, whether it being able to create a path for me to be able to pay for remaining credits, whether it's, I want to do law school. I think there's so many other things that I want to do. So for me to be able to get to that point, I had to remove a lot of limiting beliefs and really all the encouragement that my family gave me, I had to finally believe it for myself. Mm-hmm. And I had to recognize that those successes that I had when I was younger, those are the reason why I can be even more successful now that I'm aware of what I want to accomplish.
Yep. And I do want to talk about the prior successes, but before we get there, I want to talk more about this mindset and changing it, because that's hard. It's not something maybe it can be overnight. I don't know. I've had to change my own mindset. Before I purchased my home for myself, it wasn't even on my mind. Like, I knew that I wanted to buy a house one day, but I wasn't taking any active steps to buy a house because I just didn't think that's something I could do right now. I'm like, oh, well, one day I'll buy a house, but my mind was not around ownership. I was just going to keep renting. Nothing wrong with renting if that's what whoever decides for their life. But it was a limiting belief I had on myself, among a slew of other things. I mean, I think I know we're our own worst critics. But how do people shift that mindset from going into not believing that they can do more wherever they're working, whether they're the bagger in the grocery store and they look at the manager and say, must be nice, and they'd really like to pursue that, but they don't see it for themselves? How do they start to make that change?
So I would say the biggest way that we can get that start would be by surrounding ourselves with people that do force us to think bigger. And I don't mean force in a way where it's like they're pulling our teeth, but their force is giving us momentum, whether it be through positive words, whether it be through positive actions, whether it be through a conversation. You know what I mean? Some people don't even have conversations about the idea of them starting a business with someone. So there's no way that they can think it. They don't think it because they've never had that type of conversation. So I think definitely the people that we surround ourselves with and the people that we look to for, whether it be for mentorship, whether it be for advice, if those people are always, like we said before, speaking life into us, or at least challenging our perceptions as it is, then it gives us the opportunity to get closer to eliminating those limiting beliefs. Yeah. And one other thing I would say is, if we have a particular limiting belief, we probably shouldn't continue to engage with people that have that that same belief. People that want to reaffirm that, money doesn't grow on trees, I can't make money. Well, if you had that perception about money, you shouldn't talk to people that have that same perception, because nothing's ever going to change. You would be you would be better suited talking to someone that has these grand visions of what money is and how it can help people, and how an abundance of money can help unlock a tool in you, because you don't feel any barriers. I think that would be the best way.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you more questions about this, because I want to talk to Johnny or Sarah that's at home at the couch with limiting beliefs, and they want more, but they just don't expect it of themselves. So, surround yourself with greater people. Got that. Read books. Got that. But let's say Johnny or Sarah, they don't have the circle, right? And they have to surround themselves with people who are doing and expecting better from life. But their circle just does not reflect that right now. Where do they find these people? Where do they go? They don't know where to turn. Where do they go?
I agree. So there's this quote, and I'm actually going to be paraphrasing it, but it pretty much says that everything that we ever need is already within us. So just by that, and then the follow-up would be, our life is determined by the questions that we ask. So, and it doesn't necessarily have to be asking to a human being. If I ask out loud, like, what is the thing that I could be doing right now to get certain outcome that I want? The more you ask that and you speak that into the world, you're going to get the responses. And sometimes we aren't ready for the responses, but it really first starts with asking the question and looking within. Even as much as I read all of these books behind me, it doesn't, me taking on new information doesn't matter, because again, all the stuff that I need to be successful is within me. And that's, I think, the biggest mental shift that we can make. I do recognize it is difficult as I'm talking about it. I do recognize it is difficult for someone that maybe has not had that source of positivity around them to instantly shift their mindset to say that they can do it. But we almost have to reprime ourselves to be able to do that. So whether it be first writing down some of our goals, then from writing down some of our goals, starting to think about, talk about them and ask, speak it out loud. And then from there, we will start to see the things that we need to make those things happen appear in our lives, for sure.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I like the speaking it out loud, because I've heard a lot, like when you say can't, your brain shuts down, right? Your brain believes you when you speak things. So if you speak the question, how can I run the business or run a business, start a business, your brain starts churning. It starts thinking of different ideas. Well, maybe you like making t-shirts. I think I saw something on YouTube. Maybe we should look at YouTube. Talk to yourself. Like you said, it's in you already. And once you speak that, if nobody's speaking life into you, speak it into yourself, speak it into the world, your brain will start churning and you'll get there. So I definitely think that's dope. So I want to get into quitting your job. I want to talk about what it felt like when you quit. And then I'll ask the next question. What did it feel like the day you quit?
The day I quit, it felt empowering. And the reason why it felt empowering was because I quit in literally the week before the whole shutdown happened. But beyond that, I had had the job since August, and probably since November, I felt unfulfilled at the job. It didn't feel right to me. The duties of the job, didn't align with what I was passionate about. I worked as pretty much I helped give cash advances. And I think obviously businesses need money, but businesses shouldn't take money at a rate that is unbearable for them to be able to pay back. So I had a moral difficulty being able to talk on the phone and trying to sell that product. I'm like, I don't like this. But the reason why I quit was because that day, it was a Wednesday, and usually on Tuesdays we stay till 7 o'clock or so. nobody decided that they were going to stay. And so the next morning, the CEO decided that he wanted to have a meeting telling everyone that we, no matter what, should be staying till 8 o'clock, making extra calls. And then he proceeded to go around the room and ask every single person what they did from 7 to 8 and why they didn't stay. And from there, it made me understood that this person does not care about what we like doing. And I am a person at, it doesn't matter what age I am. I understand that we should not work jobs that are not fulfilling to us. That defeats the purpose of what work is. So if we're working jobs that are not fulfilling to us, and then we get to that job and we see that the person that is writing our paychecks only wants us there so that they can have higher paychecks for themselves, it's like, why would I ever do that? So when I told him I was working on my website and he said, I hope that's making money for you, I said, you're disrespectful. You don't deserve to have me work here and make money for your company because you don't appreciate me. Because, 4 months ago when I almost closed a $400,000 cash advance, they're hyping me up, giving me high fives. This is like, but when I say that I'm working on something that's passionate to me, we have an issue that's not the way the workforce should go. So no. I was very empowered. I actually didn't even tell them I quit to their face. I wrote a letter, and I typed it up and I put it on my computer because no one's gonna talk to me that way. But in the same respect, I don't believe anyone should have the power to make me be angry and speak words that aren't necessary. The only thing I'll ever speak is truth. So I had to speak my truth, and that was the most conflict-averse way to do it.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I've experienced a number of managers. Manager turnover rate in the car dealership is much higher than salespeople. Salespeople have more job stability than the managers. But I've had one of the last managers that was at this dealership. If he ever watches this, he'll know it's just about him. He was the worst manager I have ever come across in my entire life. I was a manager at the time as well. And the way he berated the salespeople and just demeaned them, I didn't like him. And he knew that. I wouldn't disrespect him in front of the salespeople, but he knew that he and I were not friends. But I would pull him to the side and I would say, hey, look, you have to stop treating the salespeople like this because they will turn against you. And they are the bread and butter of the dealership. And if you continue doing things like this, you're not going to have a good sales team. Oh, well, you really think so? And I gave him a story. The dealership I worked to prior, we had a manager who was pretty bad, but not as bad as this one. We had the general manager. He would put out bonuses, right? And I was a salesperson then. And we would hit these bonuses. And because he didn't want to pay out, he'd take them back. He would not pay. Yeah, he would take them back. Oh, talk about demoralize the salespeople, right? So it's December at a Toyota dealership. Every dealership has this huge goal in December that they want to hit. You get a lot of payout from the manufacturer, all this stuff, especially for new cars. Well, myself included, and the rest of the salespeople decided, because he had done this repeatedly, we were not selling any new cars that month. None. If you came in on a new car, we were putting you on a CPO car, 100,000 mile warranty, hype it up and all that stuff. We definitely missed the number that December. He was livid. And so I explained this to the manager that I was talking about. And I said, you're going to get that kind of rebellion if you continue doing this. We need them to hit the numbers. We're not out there selling cars. Yeah, we could sell cars. We didn't get here because we don't know how to sell cars, but we're not the ones doing it. It's them. And he had so many people quit, people that had been there for so long, for years, mm-hmm. Like over 20 years, one guy, another guy, awesome salesman, just left. And managers sometimes don't see that. Now, I have had managers who were so uplifting that salespeople would sell the shirt off their own back so that manager could hit their goal. Because he cared about what they were doing. He cared about their home lives. That manager, the bad one I'm talking about, he says, when you go home, you still need to be emailing and calling customers. And I had a team under me. And I said, I'm not going to be asking my people to do that at all. When they're home, they're home. I want them here when they're here, and I want them home when they're home. That's
That's
it.
ridiculous.
Yeah. So I listened to your story. I heard your quit story. And I was just shaking my head like, I know what that's like. I know what that's like. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And it will infuriate you. It will just have you so upset and then miserable to go to a place that you may have once enjoyed. So you talk about the empowerment. You felt empowered when you left. Did you have a oh crap moment after you quit? Like, what did I do?
So this was the definition of when you do what is in your purpose, things will end up working out. Because I had, mind you, the time that I'm working there, I was saving up to get my car fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was saving up to get my car fixed.
The
So I
infamous
had
car.
come to work. Yeah, right. It's literally right. I came to work with one of my coworkers. That person wasn't quitting that day. You know what I mean? So I'm like, man, how the hell am I getting home? So I had ended up calling I ended up calling one of my friends who used to work there, and left. So he came and got me, and we were able to, I was able to talk about that scenario at lunch with some of my coworkers. But you know, once I quit, I knew that I had to get on what I was doing, what I wanted to do with my business. I had, I had an idea that I wanted to do for a book in November. And I'm like, maybe I'll start with that. And I'm like, now this is the opportunity for me to get right back into my business since I made the tweaks to my website. So I had literally been for months gearing up for that moment, but I didn't want to, at the time, I didn't want to leave. But once that moment happened, I was like, this is actually the moment that I was supposed to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And real quick, I know you watched it, but the thing that really got me is like that whole day was leading up to me leaving, because I came in feeling good. I had worn my blue suit. That's the infamous blue suit. That's what it is. I
Yeah,
wore that,
right.
and one of the managers there was like, "Oh, you got a court date or are you getting arrested or something like that? Why do you have a suit on?" I'm like, because I look good and I feel good. So, just to hear the dynamic and how some of the managers in the office spoke to people. Again, I worked in the program. I taught and trained 20, 30 people. Like I've had experience, and I know that that's not how managers are supposed to empower their people. Everything that is about a job is supposed to make you feel that whether I'm using it for what I'm doing right here or using it for something else, it's for my greater good. Mm-hmm. And I knew that job was not for my greater good.
Yeah, it's very important for a manager to make you feel like you're a part of a team, that they value you more mm-hmm. than anything, that you are valued. Of course, if you're not a good employee, mm-hmm. you're not going to feel that value. But if you are doing your best, and even when you slip up, I mean, I've had a number of great managers that when people slipped up, rather than what this guy would do was berate them in front of other salespeople, just berate them, and then ask me to sit in on him berating them. And so one thing I am fully aware of, that men will have their conflict, right? But when a female is present, now ego is involved. And so I'm like, I'm not coming in there, because the conversation is going to go infinitely worse if I'm sitting there. It's not going to be the same as if it's just the guys in the room and you want me to come in to do what? Embarrass him more? I'm not coming. You have to come. No, I don't. I won't be there. But when you're a good manager, you can tell somebody that they messed up. And the car business is harsh. Sometimes you do get yelled at in public. It happens. But you were talked to beforehand by a good manager. He told you, hey, what's going on? If you happen to be underselling when you oversell normally, or you're not making as much money when you made a lot before, they'll pull you to the side and, hey, what's going on? I noticed that your sales are going down. How can I help? That helps. Mm-hmm. How can I help you? But, there's a lot to be said about good managers, and I don't think everybody is cut out to be one. They should really offer more training for managers, because that's definitely people oriented, like sales is, but managing people, night and day. So you didn't have the oh crap moment when you quit. Not at that moment, but at any point between quit day and today, did you ever sit back and say, I quit my job, that's nuts, of course you kept pushing, but was that moment ever there?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually say literally probably 2 weeks after that, I felt that way. Well, mainly because the way that the 2020 has affected people, they ended up sending everyone home to work from home the next week. And then 2 weeks after that, they laid everyone off. So everyone got unemployment. So I'm like,
Mm,
I mean, I personally didn't care about getting the unemployment, but it was me saying like, wow, if I had to stay there 2 more weeks, then, I probably could have, came out in a better situation because I still know what I want to do,
right,
but I
right.
would have some additional, additional money to come in. But I'm glad that I didn't have that because it made me every day work on my book, every day, work on my website, every day, put time back into myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what I needed to do. So that
Yeah.
I'm glad everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, for sure.
Yeah. There's something about being backed into a corner that'll make you
Yeah,
surprise yourself.
100%.
Mm-hmm. When there's no other option. I really feel like, and I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm a teen mom, right? I got pregnant at 17, had my kid at 18, and not patting myself on the back, but have done well year over year since then. And he is my hero. He is the reason why I go so hard. I was not going to fail him. I had a family member when I was pregnant ask me to sign my rights over. You're not going to be able to do it. Just go ahead, bring him over here, sign your rights over. I'm like, I'm not signing. I said, you know what? I'll try my best. We're all good. But he, just knowing he was coming, and one day I'll get into my whole like pregnancy story because it was nuts. Like the amount of failing I was doing at that point when it was not reflective of who I was as a person is ridiculous. But he really woke me back up and said, all right, let's get this together. And for me, that was my back in the corner type of moment because what happens when you fail your kid? I didn't know the answer to that and I didn't want to find out. If I fail and I have a child, what happens? I didn't want to know what that looked like. But there is something about being backed in the corner. So I get that, not having the unemployment, not having that cushion, because you can get comfortable with a cushion, boy.
No, 100%. And it's funny because that story also ties into the story with you, getting your house, because the second you, even if you don't know how you're going to do it, the second you make the decision that I am going to do it and I'm going to figure it out however I have to figure it out, it starts to work out in ways that you probably couldn't even comprehend in your own mind. It's like I probably wouldn't have thought that things would have went this way. I'd be having these types of conversations, but once you make that commitment that okay, this is what I'm going to make sure I do, then everything else does tend to
Yeah.
work around that thought.
Yeah. One thing I learned is to stop giving myself two goals, a high one and a low one. I learned to stop doing that because
Hmm.
you're always going to hit the lower one. Always. You're going to go for
Hmm.
it because it's easier. Make big, hairy, audacious goals. And that's the goal. That's plan A. There's no plan B. Go for that one.
Hmm.
Because I could have said I was going to rent again, and I would have if that was on the table. But I said, no, I want to buy a house. And they told me I could. So that's what I'm going to do. And nothing but God, it took me, I started looking for a house in January. I closed on my house the third week in February. Just that quick.
Wow.
Yeah. I found my
Literally.
house 3 or 4 weeks before I closed. Just like that. Like that. Doesn't always go
That's
like that for
amazing.
people. There's papers and, somebody else could mess up. You could mess up. But if everybody's on their P's and Q's, it's not that hard to buy a house or as expensive as you thought. But anyway, I say all that to say is backing yourself into a corner. I love hearing that. So talk to me about your book. I'm familiar with your book, but talk to the people about your book, who it's for, and why.
So the full title of the book is Recession Proof Manifester: How to Combine Your Skills with Actionable Steps to Manifest Side Income. And the reason why I decided to create that loaded title was because I actually want to get away from using the word side hustle, first of all. And the only reason why I want to get away from that is because again, if you really like something, you don't necessarily have to hustle for it. You shouldn't look at hustle as being the verb or adjective that you would use, because hustle sometimes has a negative connotation. I think that when we're operating in our purpose, things tend to flow a lot more naturally than anything else. And if we're using the skills that we already have, then of course things are going to flow, because we don't have to, again, everything that we need is within us already. So the whole purpose of the book is to really take people through the journey of putting their idea on paper. And then from then putting it on paper, then being able to say, okay, here's how much I could possibly make. Here are the different ideas that I want to do. Which one would be the one to start with right now? And then by the end of that 27 to, was it 28 steps, a person would have the confidence to be able to have their idea out in the market. And this is all to say that it's not about the money. Mm-hmm. It's more about the impact and the feeling that you get from doing it. Because if you can make $20 to $100 doing whatever the thing is that you're passionate about using your own skills, I can guarantee each year you will continue to make more money with that particular skill. I found it super interesting that we, as people, are okay with having, well, not even necessarily okay, but we've been conditioned to have multiple different bills, but then we think we only have to have one job or skill that we monetize, when in reality, we probably have more skills than bills. And that's a bar right there, right now.
It is. Bars.
No, right? And because we have more skills, we should feel confident that anytime we do need money, let me put one of my ideas out into the marketplace, and we can be able to then get the income that we need. I believe that people that have a negative opinion of what capitalism is, unfortunately won't be able to succeed, because capitalism does give people like you and I the benefit to succeed in a society that we probably wouldn't have succeeded in if capitalism didn't exist.
That is true.
People actually more or less dislike consumerism and dislike the fact that we're inundated with so many different options to buy,
right,
rather than the fact that we can buy something itself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that just by people utilizing their skills, they will live a more fulfilled and happy life, just because they're working on things that they already are good at. Yeah. And to answer your question as far as who is this for, I think this is for a couple of different subgroups. So one subgroup would be for people that were like myself, on the verge of leaving high school, not necessarily knowing what they want to do when they go into college. By all means, I want them to go to college if they have that idea, that greater vision for what they want to do. But in the meantime, continue to cultivate and develop the skills that you've worked so hard and you've spent so much time on. Like in high school, I spent time doing debate, mock trial, I've done piano, I've done baseball, I've done all these things that are a part of me, and shape the way that I think. It makes sense for me to continue to use those skills in some type of way. I don't think that we should ever abandon our skills because someone else tells us that we should, or because someone else feels like we should be in a certain career path. So that's one subgroup. The other subgroup would be people that have an idea, but they've been ruminating on that idea for months, what may seem like years. The book has a couple of different resources in terms of, I'm a huge action steps person. So at the end of each chapter is an action step portion where someone can write in their ideas. They can do the steps from that chapter. So that way at the end of the book, like I said, they do have everything on paper. And then the last subgroup would be someone that has just launched their idea, but they are looking to find a better way to monetize it. Maybe they're not necessarily getting the sales that they're looking for or that they thought they would get. But the only reason why they're probably not getting the sales that they thought they get is because they didn't set those sales goals. Right. They didn't say, hey, I want to make sure by the end of December 2020, I have this many sales. I want to, once we set those goals, it makes it, and put them on paper, it makes it more likely that we'll achieve them. So that would probably be the last the last subsection that the book is for.
Yeah, I know it's important to have goals because once you have it written down, you know the steps that need to be taken to get there, but you should also write those steps down too. But if you just think in your mind, I'm going to sell the most t-shirts ever by next year and then leave it. Well, how many is that? put a number, get specific. How many do you need to sell per week, per day, per hour? Break it down into bite-sized chunks. Had a manager, and I talk about him often, but he used to always say, eat that elephant one bite at a time. It's a big old elephant, one bite at a time, you know, and I always like that saying. You also talk about in the book, finding your why. Right. And how it's really important to have a why. But why? Why is it important to have a why?
The most important reason it's imperative that someone has a why is because things are going to happen. Life is going to happen. There are going to be obstacles that come in your way. And it's super important for us to understand the deep in our heart reason as to why we're doing something. You'd almost equate it to like the North Star. If you're lost, you know, you look up in the stars can tell you where to go. But that's the exact same thing with your why. And to be completely honest, the most powerful whys are the ones that are beyond ourselves. The ones that whether it be yourself wondering how you're going to be able to provide for your son. Well, hey, because that was your why, everything that you ever could have wanted was able to come because you know it was bigger than just yourself and what you wanted. And the same thing with, you know, whether it be a business, the biggest businesses are more often than not are the ones that are helping the most amount of people. Now we can be honest and say that yes, there are some, you know, areas where they may fail in terms of being greedy, but they still are helping an immense amount of people, whether it be providing them jobs or things like that. So it's super important to have a why that goes beyond who we are. And I would almost go as far to say is if our why is driven on helping as many people as we can, and like you said, putting a number on it, we will 100% accomplish our goal. And what we'll have done over that amount of time will be way greater than anything we could have imagined. We would have written down. We'll look back and be like, wow, I did actually help 1 million people, but everything else that I thought I was going to do is like, I couldn't have wrote this down.
Right. I agree with you 100%. Another thing I want to touch on real quick is systems, having systems. So for me, I would say I kind of follow routine, but I also am kind of all over the place because my mind is always going, right? I know that for the way that my mind works, that I have to have regular things I do throughout the day. Otherwise, I won't complete anything. I'm just going to jump from topic to topic. But it can be difficult for somebody who is not regimented to then make a regimen. So first, define what you mean by systems. And then I want to talk about how we can get somebody who is really fly by the seat of their pants type of person to put those systems in play.
So whether it be for business or for personal, I would define systems as anything and everything that helps make a particular task duplicatable. And duplicatable in the sense where I can, just by whether it be working in this time block, using this system in a particular way, I can get the same result almost 99% of the time. And I think that is super important is because, like you said, most of our life is based on the habits and, you know, routines that we set for ourselves. So even if the system is saying that each day I'm going to work on 5 things that help move my business, my nonprofit venture, my personal life forward, that probably could be one of the best systems that you would have because you're always focusing on that improvement, that moving forward, that one next step. So that would probably be the best thing I could say about systems. I hope that answered.
It does. For me, and I don't know if you got to this part of how they can just start. I like to write, so everything for me is like writing it down. I have a million boards, I have whiteboards, I have chalkboards, books.
Mm-hmm.
It
Same way.
makes no sense. Like there's one right here, there's one over there. It's ridiculous. But for me, it's writing it down. And I would advocate for people to write it down, but I would say whatever gets the information out of your head, and making yourself a list of things that you want to do attainably. Because I did suffer from putting too many things on my list and then feeling defeated at the end of the day because I didn't complete the 57 things that were on it. But an attainable list. Do you have a way of going about writing your schedule or your things to do? Do you have a core 5? How's that work for you?
So yeah, I have a couple of things that I do. So pretty much the night before, mainly during weekdays, I make sure that I go through what my next day is going to be like. So I try to go almost on an hourly basis of I work in time blocks. So whether it be 90-minute time blocks or 180-minute time blocks, I make sure that I am in those time blocks writing down the tasks that I want to accomplish. And that's pretty much the system that I go through for organizing my day. Now, the purpose or the reason why I do that is twofold. One, so that the next day when I'm, deciding what I'm trying to do, all I have to do is look down at the paper and it becomes either binary. Yes, I did it. No, I did not do it. So that kind of helps me with accountability. But go one step further, I'm a huge meditation person. And more often than not, I like to meditate me actually going through my next day and being successful in that next day and accomplishing the things and see myself actually doing those things. And that was something that I got from this guided meditation that I use. It's called Mind Valley. So I would say those are probably the two most important things that I do. And I think that would be beneficial to anyone if they were looking to get a start, because just the habit of writing down your day and being intentional with your time is super important, because time is actually the most important currency that we own, not money, time, because, and that's why, almost working a job for someone that is unfulfilling is demoralizing, because it takes away your time. And now you feel like you can't do what you want to do. So obviously, if we're able to take control of our time, and even if someone's just starting, I probably wouldn't recommend doing the whole day. Maybe do a couple hours, do a couple hour time block just to get in the process of doing it. But I think once a person does that and they enjoy it, they will ultimately want to go through the process of literally having it on their calendar, you saw my calendar the other day. I make sure that I have like everything in there. Even if it doesn't get done, it becomes then a source of accountability for me to go back at the end of the day. And when I do my daily review, I can say, okay, hey, this is what I did. This is what I didn't do. What did if I didn't do this in this particular time block, what did I do? And I write those things down, because the more intentional we can be with our time, the more we're going to be intentional with the results that we get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I suffer with perfectionism. And so when I would make these lists and not achieve them, not accomplish everything that was on it, I would definitely beat myself up. Like, it's supposed to do all of these things. And being a working mom was just attacking my soul, let me tell you, because I would be a fire salesperson, but feel like I was failing my son, or I would be mom of the year or failing at work, or dope at both and not taking care of myself. So I'm like, how am I supposed to figure all this out? But I did hear a quote, don't know from who, definitely paraphrasing. I think it was from, I can picture his face, but not his name. Anyway, he said, how do you win a year? The way you win a year is by winning most of your months. The way you win a month is by winning most of the week. Most of your weeks, you win your week by winning most of the days. You win a day by winning most of the hours. So it doesn't require perfection within your day, but as long as you win the majority of the day and then the majority of the week, that will all turn into a successful year. It kind of gives you an out almost. It really does give you an out to get away from perfectionism and say, you know what? I did the best that I could, and I'll do the best that I can do tomorrow, and so on and so on. And then eventually you will have that successful year in life that you were looking for. Yeah.
100%. And just to kind of touch upon one of the points that you said, even when you're breaking it down that way, if you're focusing on the days and the hours, if for some reason you don't accomplish something that you wanted to accomplish in one of those hour blocks, you still have the opportunity to be grateful and appreciative for all the things that you did accomplish in that day. You know what I mean? So, and it does give you the opportunity to reflect on that. So I 100% agree.
Yeah. I like that you brought up meditation, because I don't meditate now, but I have in the past. And so part of this whole perfectionism thing going on in my head is thinking about things over and over and over again. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. He takes a very long time to make a decision, right? So he says, you make decisions really quickly, but I don't. And I said, well, here's the thing, is that I don't think I make decisions any faster than you do. I think that if the question was, how can I build a microphone? And it takes 48 hours to think about that thing. You're going to think about it for 2 hours today, 2 hours tomorrow, 2 hours next week. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but I'm going to think about it for 48 hours straight. And so at the end of the 48 hours, I'm done with it. Built my microphone. What are you waiting on? But it consumes my whole mind. And I do that with a lot of different things, but meditation, especially with worry, because you have to clear your mind, has taught me how to deal with things in a healthier way. Because I got it done in 48 hours, but I didn't do anything else. I'm starving, kids crying. Like, you can't do that all the time and for every situation. So meditation helps in so many ways: stress management, worrying, your overall health. And it's not easy when you first start. And I'd like for people to know that you are going to think about a bunch of stuff when you are sitting there trying to clear your mind. But eventually that 45-minute session is going to feel like 5 minutes. What kind of benefits would you say you've received from meditation yourself?
Plenty of. Before I even talk about the benefits, one thing I did want to say is that I think a lot of people do scare themselves with meditating because they feel like, man, my mind is going to be thinking about these other thoughts. They're going to wander, et cetera, et cetera. But part of practicing meditation is being able to then, once you do feel your thoughts start to drift, to then be able to bring them back to, whether it be, that the empty space, or whether it be a guided meditation, the ability to grab it back is probably the most important skill that someone can practice. So I would say the people that have those active minds, and that's the reason why they don't meditate, when they do become a master at meditation, it will only be because they were able to bring their thoughts back into, what they, that empty space, or again, like whether it be a guided meditation. Mm-hmm. But in terms of what good has come out of meditating, I would definitely say just my overall vibe definitely feels better. I feel like I'm able to put out better energy. I do feel I'm better at being able to visualize and create the feeling of the things that I want, because most of life is feeling anyways. And the only separation between where we are and where we want to be is the feeling, not necessarily the action. It's the feeling. If we can feel in that space, then we would be inspired to take the action that's necessary. So I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that it's helped me with, be able to help me take more inspired action, help me focus in on the things that I want to accomplish and be more clear with my intentions. I do a combination of meditation with the, binaural beats, as well as a meditation that is strictly a guided meditation. It's called a six-phase meditation by Mind Valley. They go through a couple of different components. So I've been able to focus more on gratitude, compassion, forgiveness, the vision for the future, and visualizing what my perfect day is. So I think just by being in line with those things.
One of the best I've ever done. I really enjoyed that one.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. It's an amazing thing. And I would say that anyone that is looking to be more in touch with themselves, the best way to do it would be through meditation, for sure.
Dope. Yeah. Normally I do guided meditation, or just, sitting in silence and not thinking about anything else. So when I came upon the one that was your perfect day, I was like, this is different. And it seemed wrong. I'm like, I'm supposed to be clearing my mind, not thinking about something. So I went through that and I felt amazing afterwards. I'm like, wow, I could take over the world. Well, last couple questions.
Exactly.
I don't normally ask this question, but have you ever heard, I think it was Will Smith, I don't know. Somebody said, the question is, what do you want to do with your dash? Have you ever heard that before? No? Okay. So they pose the question that way because when you die, you have 1980 to 2050, whatever. And you have the dash in between. So your dash is all the life that you've lived. Have you considered what you want to do with your dash?
100%. I've 100% considered everything that I want to do with my dash. I've actually even take it a step further. I don't know if this is just my own thought or where this came from, but I almost feel like I would live to be 120. I don't know if that. I don't even think I would want to do it when I get to that point. But the purpose of me saying that is just that in the course of my life, there are so many things that I want to do for the betterment of the people around me. So definitely with my family's property in Virginia, I want to, not only redo the house that the family lived in to make it a bigger house, because we call it the big house in Virginia. And at one point there was 13 children living in that house with two parents. So I'm looking at it now. I'm like, there's no way that 13 people lived in this house, but I want to be able to repair the legacy with that house, and really use that land to do something amazing for the community around it, and continue to impact businesses through digital marketing, sales, and really helping challenge their perception of what they can do with their business. I think that the only reason why more businesses aren't necessarily franchise or $1 million businesses or anything like that is because they haven't put in their mind definitely that's what they want to accomplish. But if you think about it, small businesses makes up a majority of the businesses that exist in our country. And if every small business push themselves and say, hey, I want to be able to do this for my community, to provide these type of job opportunities, and et cetera, we will 100% be in a better place. I believe that my business is going to change the way people think about the working environment. I don't think people should just work. Like I said, I don't think people should work jobs that make them feel unfulfilled. So anytime I'm working with someone, training someone, or introducing to my business, I want them to be passionate and understand what their goals are so that I can coach them through their goals.
Yep. I'm
so that's my dash.
Right in line there with you. Yes. I love that. And I love that you've thought about it, that you know where you want to go. And what's awesome is as you go through your journey and you accomplish those things, because I know you will, you're going to have other little ideas spark off of those, or big ideas, I should say, spark off of those that you'll also be able to accomplish because you did those things. You also talk about success being a journey, right? So when you hit that thing that you think is successful, you buy that house in Virginia, you make it bigger, you use it for the community. That's not it though. So from that point, then there'll be so many other grand things to come from that. And that's what's really exciting about life. It took me a while to learn that it wasn't a destination. I said success is not a journey. Success is not a destination. It took me a long time to figure that out. And then once you figure that out, it's like, all right, I'm strapped in, ready for the ride.
100%. And it's funny because, again, it all comes from, my mom, my grandma, they both were teachers. And I told my mom when I was 21, I was like, my goal is to actually open up a school, because rather than relying on the current educational system, I know that there are so many things that have to be taught and ways that it can be done. And me going to Pennsylvania was just part of that journey, because I got to be close to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and learn about the story of Milton Hershey. And learning about the story of Milton Hershey and understanding how there is a whole town in Pennsylvania based on how he was able to not only grow his business, but his business helped him pay for the boarding school, which has the second largest endowment in the country, because obviously Hershey Park and all these things go through it, but they help put kids to college. It's a boarding school that gives kids that don't necessarily have, those opportunities with their home life to be able to come into an environment where they will provide for them and really take them to that next level. So that's what I think, is schooling should be about. And, like I said, I told my mom that vision probably like 4 years ago. And that was before we saw how unprepared some of these school districts were with, how they're able to educate our children. So that is definitely a project that's near and dear to me. And I know it's going to be in Virginia because it has to be somewhere it's warm, because I focus on not only academics, but athletics is another part that is super important for the community as well.
Dope. Armand, I could talk to you for hours because I definitely still have like questions teeming in my head or ideas that I want to hear from you. But we can't keep it going forever. So I'm going to wrap it up and ask you the last couple questions.
All right, we can do that. No problem.
Where can people find you, find the book, find you on social media?
All right. So if people were to find me on social media, they can go on Instagram at Armand the Manifester. Super simple. And then if we're going to the website, it's going to be sigmasolutionmarketing.com. And that's where they would find my book. They would find any information about myself. And if you go to my Instagram, not only does it have my email, but it does have my actual number. So I am super open to discussing, anything that anyone wants to talk about. I personally, as you can tell, I love to talk, and I love to that. I can give off a good energy to anyone that needs it.
Absolutely. And last question, is there a quote that you live by?
Is there a quote that I live by? I would say, and we talked about it the other day, but whatever you ask for in prayer, if you believe it, you shall receive it. That's paraphrasing, but that's pretty much the best way I can say it, because prayer is a combination of multiple things. It's a combination of affirmations. It's a combination of being able to actually speak. A combination of using your hearing and all those things. It even goes into almost visualizing yourself being in that space that you're praying for. So I would say that anytime we pray as people, we should pray not for like pray in a manner where we feel like we're separate from the thing that we want. We pray as if we already have it. We have the health that we're looking for. We have the gratitude. We have the love that we're seeking, and 100% it will show into our lives.
Absolutely. Listen, if you are not following Armand on social media and you're not on his website, you got to get there. I've heard you talk about being a thought leader. You're there. Your vibe is definitely there. You're giving out good information to people and just very helpful overall, really building up your community and not just talking about it. The phone number that he's offering, it's because he does this. He talks to people. He guides them through things. That's who he is. It wouldn't be up there if he didn't want you to call the number. So if you are feeling what he's talking about, you enjoy the book, give him a call. You want to start your own brand and he's offering to help you, give him a call. Don't close the doors that have been opened for you. Armand, I appreciate you being on. I can't wait to have you on another time when you're doing more things.
I appreciate you for having me.
Talk about some more. No problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
If you're not subscribed already, subscribe now and tune in next week. See you later.
I think that uncomfortable is being necessary because it pushes you to your next level without you even being ready. I think that when you're uncomfortable, you're forced to face your reality. When you're uncomfortable, you're forced to say, this is working, this is not working. If I stay here, this is what it's going to be. If I move on and push forward, this is what it's going to be. It's like the accountability falls back on you when you're uncomfortable. It's like you're uncomfortable. For me, I know that feeling of uncomfortableness and saying to myself, you gotta move. Like, what do you, like, this is on you. Because time's waiting for nobody. Mm-hmm. People aren't waiting for nobody. People are still moving and living. So if you're really feeling this, you're so uncomfortable and it's not right, the only person that holds the power to really change it is you, right? So not only are you forced to face reality when you become uncomfortable, which is necessary, you're also forced to take accountability for where you go next. And that's necessary, because a person who lacks accountability is a person who lacks reasoning with self, a person who is unable to put responsibility on themselves, a person who's unable to reflect. So for me, that's important. And learning that, and still learning that today, because I don't even think I've reached my greatest version of myself. I don't think that I'm nowhere near there yet. I think that I still have some things to go through and some things to get through. And so for that, to know that, and to be one-on-one with being uncomfortable, it's like, okay, I'm ready for what comes, because I know that it's on me.